Randy, you talked to Constable one.
Him and Constable Wells were gonna split the full-time, and then we didn't do the full-time, and then Constable Wells said, for 14 years I've done my own paperwork, I can do my own paperwork. And when I talked to Sharper, he felt the same way, so I've done mine, but would he like to have different? Yes, he'd like to have different. Is he here to tell us that? No, but you still have the part if you're gonna add, even if you added a part-time, where are they gonna be? I mean, are they gonna be in George's office, or they're gonna be, they don't have any room in Iola, my understanding is anyway, they don't have room in Iola. Now, can they do like some of y'all and hang them from the ceiling, maybe, I don't know. That's just what I've been told.
I've not been up there and seen the offices, and so I don't even know what Mr. Sharper has for an office or.
I know Dale would like to have some help, I'm sure George would like to have some help. That being said, we are where we are on this thing right now.
I'm fine with that.
To leave it out.
One of the things that Commissioner Greger that we have tried to do is, different times throughout these last 3 years, we've said, well, we couldn't do it this year, let's put it as one of the priorities for next year to relook at. We could ask that possibly relook at it again.
I know when I went back through my list, I had kind of made a list of needs and wants. And that was one of them that I think that there was a want.
I'm sure there could, just like every other department, there could probably be something that was done that could help them out. Obviously, the 35,000 plus or minus that was proposed wasn't in the budget, I guess. So Constable Sharper said he had a stack of papers that thick on his desk that needed to be filed, and said the way that they do things, he doesn't necessarily agree with going around in a circle to do everything that they do. It seems like that they create more paperwork than if they could get on some kind of system that you just, actually, I'm not even going to say anything else about it. That was his words, he's not here to say it, so don't worry about it.
On page 17, we had increased on that position to $10 an hour. And that was going to give the raise on top of that, whatever percentage raise on top of that. The next one, we had, I think we increased that back up compared to the last budget that we have given you. And that is because she has not purchased any since she's had the vehicle. We added the certificate.
Right.
Okay. Next page, we added the certificate as well, but we also had the reduction in the last line item to help
Cover that.
There are no changes on page 19. On 20, we increased those. We increased those because we felt like after the jail, he originally had a pretty small budget, and so he was needing a little bit more, and he does do the traveling. He does do more traveling.
And he goes to the veterans' homes because some of them just can't come, or he'll go to the nursing homes or wherever.
She was increased and there was no raise given on top of that, but percentage raise. Just the increase. On page 21, we did increase that. We felt it was pretty low to begin with, and so we feel more secure
No, yes.
with raising it up to the,
With Scott and White opening up, I'm concerned that more of our indigent people will be going to Scott and White than St. Joseph. And so we don't have a 1115 waiver set up with Scott and White. So we're going to have to be prepared to cover additional expenses if they go to Scott and White versus St. Joseph. And also if they go to the med center.
we increased the utilities according to our GL. Those have gone up, the prices.
And when she says that we've increased them,
Well, changes. It was,
Commissioner Finke was in there with us, going over it line by line. And as we came to something and we saw that, all right, they're already at that point already, then we would say something and she would say, go ahead. She was filling in for Judge Shiplet. This is what we normally do with Judge Shiplet, is go line by line throughout the process. We go through that several times throughout the budget process. And that way, we can be better prepared for next year as far as the expenditures are concerned.
Right now, the 488, I know that, I guess Road and Bridge, you're covering the tire trailer?
Yes.
You comfortable with it?
I'm covering part and he's covering part.
Okay.
I have 2,500 is all I have in my budget for tire trailers. And depending on how often we get them or how many we get, it runs over that. And so Road and Bridge helps me and they'll pay the difference.
We got 3 of them this year.
Yeah, we'll be receiving some invoices here probably this next week for the 3 that we just had picked up.
And I know, I think you helped me on the one in Richards because they don't have a dump site there, so we try to do that. When they do their cleanup, their pickup or whatever, we try to provide an extra dumpsters for their community effort since they don't have a dump site in that area. Is that something that you're still comfortable with, or is something we need to consider in here?
I don't really have a big problem with it, well, you know, just,
You got the money, we got the time. That's good.
yeah, I mean, I think it was $500.
I think that's all, yeah, they worked with us on that Texas Commercial Waste cuts the deal.
Yeah, I talked to,
Okay.
whichever way, you know, Debbie or I, either way, we think, you know, it is good.
We did increase CBC. The fuel, the 30%, there was, you know, the other ones we increased by 30%. So that was an adjustment. And then the vehicle she has is an older vehicle, so the repairs and maintenance. And then on page 23, that was increased as well. On page 27, 130 was increased due to what was said on Friday, and they're getting the percentage raise on top of that.
There was a 25-cent pay increase discussed for one of the employees, and then the percentage off.
The next line item, that there was some changes made to that one. Within this year, we did not have a temporary part-time position or line item budgeted for. So when we created that, they reduced wages and put it into part-time. And so we went ahead and made that adjustment as well for this year. We also changed, I believe, 5 employees up to $12 an hour. And so that's in the line 148. And then also on the temporary part-time, there was one employee that we did bring up, and he works for part-time in Road and Bridge and then a certain amount of hours in 911. So those adjustments were made to both departments. And there's not a raise on that part-time person. We brought him up and he's staying at that. There's not a percentage raise on top of that. And that's in the line item 149.
You got something, you need something, Mr. Carter?
I was gonna ask, I don't have cause 149, but it.
You won't. This is a completely different one, because it was not budgeted for last year. It didn't show
That's that
up.
new created line?
Yes, sir. It's
Okay.
where you had reduced 20,000 from your wages and put it into part-time. We went ahead and did the same thing for this budget year
Okay.
and put it into part-time. We increased your one employee. I think he's the main part-time employee that you have there. The others are temps. But we increased that up to $10 an hour.
Okay.
And, but if there is a raise that's passed, he won't get anything of that. He'll just get the increase. It exceeds, right.
Sure.
And so on your wages, road and bridge personnel, the same goes for your 5 employees at $12 an hour. They will get the $12 an hour, but they will not receive the 3% or 5%, whichever route that the commissioners choose to go.
And that part-time person, is that the person you have on that water truck now?
No, the permanent part-time, he's kind of my sign man and works for CAT. He works 10 hours a week for me and 19 hours a week for CAT. And he's the sign guy. And then the people we have 4 hired right now that just help us in the summer, catch up with all the work. They help with the mowing or on the rollers and stuff like that. And they shouldn't be driving the water truck.
Well, I just noticed a guy driving the water truck yesterday afternoon, at 10 minutes to 5, he was fully loaded, and he was on his way to that 311 to put that water out. And I thought, man, normally those trucks would be back in by the thing, so I would compliment him on that. Just, he got his full day, and I noticed.
Good, good.
That's what I like to hear.
I don't think he could put that load out in 10 minutes and get back to the county farm, but he certainly did, so, I'm pleased about that.
Okay. Any questions regarding road and bridge? Our next, no questions on road and bridge? No, okay. Our next adjustment is going to be on page 39. That part-time person is in the 911. So we did the same for him. And also the second line item, it was increased as well.
And the amount it was increased was more than
The percentage.
the percentage raise, so it was discussed not to add a percentage on top of that.
And that would be all of the adjustments that were made, of course, with the permission of Commissioner Finke, acting as the judge, presiding judge. If you have any questions or you would like to make changes, the proposed will be filed. It must be filed by Tuesday, and preferably Tuesday morning, with the county clerk for a 2-week inspection by the citizens prior to our budget hearing.
Second public hearing on the proposed tax increase, and the proposed budget is September 17th.
The budget will be at 9:30, Commissioner Finke.
Okay.
The tax at 9,
At 9.
and 9:30 be a separate agenda for the budget
What day is
hearing.
that?
The 17th.
The 17th, there's 2 separate agendas, 9 for the tax and 9:30 for the budget.
Looking down the road at where we are and talking with the city, I know that we don't anticipate that this year, but if we could, I'd certainly like to see us start to build toward trying to do something with a small animal control officer or whatever. I know you get tons of calls, and we all get tons of calls about stray dogs, stray cats, and unfortunately, I think a lot of those end up, the city of Navasota they felt like they were getting some of those, but right now, I think the guy who handles the large animals does a great job. But I just think down the road, we need to start looking at what we're going to do, and if we can do it in conjunction with one of the, I mentioned it to the city of Anderson about working in conjunction with them, because that's where I get the most of my calls, is people that come through here on the weekends that go to the state park here in Anderson, and I'll get a phone call and go, why are there stray dogs running around everywhere here? Don't y'all have any? I tell them we don't have a small animal control officer, and it's going to be an expense. And I know that several people have said it's, in order to have a full-time person, then plus you got to have a facility to keep them and supplies and everything else. But it's just something I think for future reference that we need to be looking ahead a little bit on what we're going to be doing with that, even though the majority of our area is rural, we still have a lot of, we've got some of those concerns that we're going to have to be thinking about down the road.
And I cannot disagree with you on that at all. It's something we really need to look strongly at. And, as we've discussed, and Mr. McLean here, and we talked on the phone a little more about the county court at law, and us putting aside that money. I'm glad that we were able to bite the bullet and change some things this year to get that set aside, or proposed to be set aside.
Even though this is this year's budget, I think we've made some provisions by looking down the road for things that we're going to have, so hopefully we're moving in the right direction. We can't do it all at one time, but at least we can start. This is a good way to start, I think.
off some hours, and Mary, Jesse, Talita, thank y'all, Janice, Bob, George, Jay, Sheriff's Office, John, Todd, Larry, thanks for filling in there, buddy. We've been on the
Yeah.
phone quite a lot. Yes. Even Mr. McLean answering my calls to his cell phone and surprised everybody. Okay, we, but
Can you give that number out?
no, sir. Someone else asked me that and I said, absolutely not. I've been, that is
Enough people
a
got
guarded,
that
I've got it for you.
I just wanted for the examiner.
I think she has it too.
thanks for the hard work of department heads, elected officials, everybody. So, yes, ma'am.
Did you want to discuss the differential on the rates?
Yes. One thing that
I mean,
Commissioner
this
Krieger
is
and I,
just proposed, so it
it's just
doesn't.
proposed, but one of the things that Commissioner Krieger and I discussed yesterday in a conversation was we had talked about a 3% cost of living raise, and it is proposed that we can do a 5% pay increase. We talked about asking that the stipulation be that the 3% be the cost of living, and that the 2% be up to the department head and the elected official to put it towards their employees as a type of merit stipulation. For those that did not exceed what we did or were changed at the request of certain situations. It's just
I
a
just
thought,
think it
it's a
it
proposed.
gives that elected official, that department head, there may be some situations where, not saying that everybody doesn't warrant a 3%, but then there are situations where each department or an elected official has somebody in their office that goes over and above. That gives them the flexibility and the authority to say, look, you know, I wished I could give this person some more and take, do this. So that's why we did that. We tried to make it work for each department head. An elected official has that 2% that they can administer where they think it needs to go.
And of course, that is just proposed, and if we are able to pass that, then we'll just ask that it's, we'll leave that, we'll ask that the 3%, and that's the way it's figured in, and it will be figured that way, and then it'll be up to the department heads and the elected officials to go in on the piece of paper that you have and put in exactly. And the auditor's office, bless their hearts, they will go through and make sure that that's still within.
I'm working on a spreadsheet that I can give out to each department.
What about the one-man office, one woman?
The 5%. Okay, just for clarification, if it is a one-person office, and Ms. Williams, I'm going to use you, the 5% goes in your line item.
It goes in everybody's line item
Yeah.
across, 5% across. They're just telling you how it can use it. The 3% is a must for everybody, the 2% is up to the discretion of the department head.
But it does
If you don't feel like you earned it, you don't have to. You
Penny
can donate
more,
it to
honey.
somebody.
Every penny more.
I think it does need to be stressed that they can't move it from one line item to another. If it's in for deputies, it's got to be used for deputies. If it's in for jailers, for jailers. If it's in for secretaries, it's secretaries. You know, whatever it's in there for, that's where it goes. You can't move it from one line item to another. That's not the way the commissioners have expressed they wanted it.
I'll try to answer any questions once this proposed budget is filed that anybody has. I know that all the commissioners have sat down with the auditor's office and gone through clarifications on each expenditure and different things that we've done. So, we'll try our best to clarify any questions that you may have.